All right. It is 1:30 p.m. on Tuesday, November 4th, and I will call this meeting to order. It's a meeting of the Technical Review Committee for the Stanley Historic District, and I'm going to start with introductions of TRC members and staff. So we'll start down at this end and work our way this way.
Joe Calvin, and I'm a local architect.
David Greer, Public Works Director for the town of Estes Park.
Greg Mahone, and I'm a licensed engineer in the Public Works Department here at the town.
Matthew Cacciatorian, and I'm a local structural engineer.
I'm Travis Mahalik. I'm the town administrator for the town of Estes Park. Okay, we're going to start off with agenda approval. Any additions or changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain an action to approve the agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Just the regular agenda.
Sorry, agenda approval, yes.
I second that.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Or do we need to do a voice vote? All right.
Yes.
So we'll do a voice vote starting with yes.
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 Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Just for everybody up here, the way our microphone system is set up is if I can have mine on all the time, but we can only have one on over here. So you need to make sure that turn your mic off when you're done talking so that it cues up the next person in line. All right, we'll move to minutes from June 17th, 2025, ARC. That's acknowledgement only. So we will move to our action item, Lot 2A subdivision plat, Freeland Heights subdivision, Planner Hornbeck.
Good afternoon. There it is. All right, so start with a little background. The Stanley Historic District is governed by the Stanley Master Plan, as well as portions of the Municipal Code, Development Code, and development agreements for each parcel. The master plan dictates all new development shall first be reviewed as a preliminary package by the TRC, as well as by the Architectural Review Committee, followed by review of a final package by the TRC. The master plan includes guidelines on applicable to the entire district, as well as specific standards to each parcel. Subdivisions are unique in that the town's standard process through the development code applies as well, meaning the town board will be the decision maker on the subdivision plat. So the TRC's role is approving new development associated with the subdivision, meaning buildings, roads, landscaping, grading, etc. The Architectural Review Committee, ARC, review is required as well. They did previously review the proposed model home and found that in conformance with the applicable guidelines. So the subject parcel is Lot 2A. It was subdivided from what was known as Parcel 2 in the Stanley District into lots 2A and 2B. So there are references to Parcel 2, and that is applicable here as well. So the proposal before you today is a 10-lot subdivision. It would replace 6 existing duplex envelopes, meaning a maximum of 12 units could be built under the current approved plat. You can see the faint outline of those duplex envelopes on the plat, as well as the new darker proposed lot lines. So a full analysis of the master plan guidelines is provided in the staff report. I'll provide a high-level summary here, starting with the site planning guidelines. Items 1 and 2 speak to preserving natural landforms and vegetation and minimizing grading. The rock formations on the western portion of this site are the most visually dominant and distinctive, and those will be left in their natural condition. Outside of this area, the majority of the site has slopes between 14 and 20%. New construction on slopes in this range does necessitate some disruption to existing landforms. However, the grading plan shows that grading is focused around individual building sites rather than creating large flat building envelopes with extensive overlot grading. This is consistent with the objective of siting buildings to fit their sites and leaving natural landscape intact. On number 3, preserving views. The most significant views of the historic district are those from the south towards the hotel complex. Those views will not be impacted. Views from homes to the north of the subject parcel will be impacted, but not to an unexpected extent, given development is permitted on the parcel, and given the proposed orientation of those buildings to the southwest, leaves view windows towards Longs Peak and the mountains to the southwest. Number 4, natural drainage materials will be confirmed with the final package. And number 5, clustering of buildings and parking areas does appear present here. Next is building placement guidelines. Plans show grading focused around individual building footprints, as mentioned, rather than creating large flat sites. Number 2, solar access, no negative impacts appear present. Number 3, no new service areas are proposed. Individual utility meters should be shown on building permit applications for review of appropriate screening. Pedestrian circulation, a sidewalk currently exists along Overlook Court and terminates at the west end of the cul-de-sac. Given the low volume of the driveways here, no additional sidewalks are warranted, as they can be shared with vehicles and pedestrians. And intersection visibility will be confirmed with the final package for where those driveways intersect Overlook Court. Next is landscape guidelines. The landscape plan depicts aspen and spruce trees located to soften views of buildings. Specific species and plant sizes will need to be provided with the final package. No fencing is proposed. Staff recommends a condition of approval that the applicant establish covenants that prohibit fencing above 40 inches as an additional guarantee or protection on minimizing fencing. Potential retaining walls are shown on lots 2, 4, 6, and 9. Heights generally appear limited to 5 feet or less, and staff recommends condition of approval that additional details be provided on the final package to ensure conformance with master plan standards. Regarding protection of vegetation, it appears approximately 20 significant trees will be removed. Approximately 25 new trees are proposed. Buildings do appear sited in a manner to minimize loss of trees where feasible, such as clustering towards lot lines. Specific development standards for parcel 2, a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet is established by the master plan. Proposed small slot proposed is around 6,500 square feet, so that is met. The maximum height of 30 feet. The model building plans did comply with this. However, given how building height is measured from average grade, each building permit will need to provide those calculations and confirm compliance. Off-street parking, two-car garages are proposed with each unit, plus driveways for guests. The setbacks, the applicant does request 2 variances, 2 required setbacks. There's a 10-foot setback required from the south property line. There's a required 15-foot setback. The applicant has requested approval of a 10-foot setback on lot 1 and tried to highlight that with the red arrow on the bottom of the drawing there. The lot to the south has no development in this vicinity. The nearest building is approximately 200 feet south. There's also a drainage easement in this area, prohibiting future development. Given those factors, staff does recommend approval of that variance. The applicant also requests a 25-foot setback on Lot 6 to the north property line. This variance would allow the building site to be shifted north, avoiding steeper parts of the site. The property to the northwest is zoned A accommodations, and currently the closest buildings are approximately 250 feet to the north. To the northeast, there's a property zoned RM, residential multifamily, has 2 existing townhomes, approximately 130 feet northeast. Staff again recommends TRC approve this variance.
Planner Hornbeck, before you leave that
Yep.
slide. The purpose for the setback variance request on Lot 6 is to limit the disturbance to that, the topography on the south side of the lot there.
Correct, it would help in that regard. Yeah, I think the applicant can speak further to justification. The building design standards, as mentioned, the ARC has reviewed these. Number 1, no imitation of historic styles is met. Number 2, minimize visual scale. This is one area where the ARC did request some modifications. The applicant worked with those suggestions to reduce the apparent scale. The buildings were modified to incorporate more stone on the lower levels, use of stone piers for the decks, and greater spacing between windows to address that. Roof lines are compatible with surrounding building forms. Buildings will use natural materials, including cedar siding, natural stone, and timber framing. New shingle roofs are gray in color, similar to surrounding buildings. Predominant colors are earth tone. The building permit review will ensure use of appropriate downward directed lighting. Parcel 2 also has some special considerations listed in the master plan. It speaks to connections to a public street system, which was largely accomplished with the construction of Overlook Court. There are 2 separate private drives proposed to access the units. One is shared by lots 1 and 2, and one is shared by all other lots. If developed as a townhome development, these drives would need to be placed into platted outlot to be maintained by an HOA. Otherwise, as a single-family development, the access can be placed in easements and will require shared driveway maintenance agreements to ensure ongoing maintenance. Other special considerations deal with the maximum number of units. It gets rather convoluted. However, I have confirmed they are within the under the maximum allowed number of units. The master plan envisioned 3 different possible development scenarios, one being all accommodations, one being all residential, and what applies here is a mixed development, mixture of the 2. So for each residential unit built, the 92 permitted accommodations unit decreases by 2, and for every 2 accommodations units, the 46 permitted residential units decreases by 1. There's also a cap on square footage of accommodations, maximum of 75,000 square feet. The TRC did approve a variance to increase this slightly. And these calculations require reducing that maximum allowance by 1,250 square feet for each residential unit. And those calculations are met. However, they are right at the maximum with the proposal of 5 accommodations units and 5 residential units. To ensure that that maximum is not exceeded, staff suggests a condition of approval of designating on the subdivision plat which units are approved for accommodations and which are only for residential use. Advantages of the proposal: it is consistent with the intent of the master plan. Disadvantages are the two inconsistencies on the setbacks, which were discussed earlier, that staff recommends variances for. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary package with including the variances and conditions. Summary of those conditions are additional details on materials for drainage, quantifying loss of proposed significant trees, information on specific plant sizes and species, additional details on retaining wall, material and height, site distance information, shared driveways within outlots or easements, building permit providing, applications providing additional information on heights, exterior lighting, and utility meter placement, CC&R's restrictions on fencing, and designating on the plat which lots are for accommodation use. Sample motion provided for your reference, and happy to answer questions.
Questions for staff? Just by order, we will move from the staff presentation to the applicant presentation, public comment, and then discussion, further opportunity to ask questions before we consider action.
I had a question here. I noticed that in the packet and the commentary on the landscape plan and also in condition of approval number 8, that the staff recommended a prohibition of all fences. And there's also an acknowledgement in the packet that the master plan makes allowance for privacy screenings, fences for specific purposes. That seems reasonable to me, and I'm curious to learn why staff was proposing a more stringent limitation on prohibiting all fences in this project when the master plan makes allowance for fencing.
Yeah, the applicant's not proposing fencing, so we thought it was best practice, since none is proposed, to go ahead and restrict that to no higher than 40 inches. Development code and the master plan speak to trying to minimize fencing, especially for movement of wildlife. So that's the rationale there, along with the potential of needing TRC approval of screen walls or fences that might be proposed.
So while the master plan allows limited use of fencing, am I understanding correctly that any proposal for fencing would have to come back to the TRC? So keeping that right intact would create a situation where the applicant would have to come back and go through this process again?
Yeah, I think the strict reading of the master plan is a new fence screen wall would require TRC review.
So the prohibition then is to simplify the administrative process going forward and not keep a door open for more TRC involvement?
The applicant could always come back to TRC and request fencing,
Yeah.
review of fencing, or removal of that condition.
Okay, thank you. I noticed another question. I noticed in the packet there's a great abundance of good architectural information, but I saw really no civil information. I didn't see preliminary grades on the driveway. I didn't see a typical cross-section. I didn't know if there was a preliminary drainage report prepared. Has any of that preliminary civil information been submitted and reviewed by Public Works?
It has, and maybe Jennifer could speak to what she's reviewed for Public Works.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Waters, Civil Engineer and Development Review for Public Works. Public Works did review the submittal and we prepared comments. We received a statement of intent, a concept site plan, the preliminary plat, and a preliminary drainage report. The preliminary drainage report was found to be acceptable, and it includes analysis that references other drainage reports prepared for previous Stanley Historic District development. and the proposed management of stormwater flows was found to be adequate, and the applicant is required to submit their final drainage report with their construction plan.
I noticed in the presentation there was a comment in one of the slides that made reference to discouraging concrete solutions for drainage issues. At the same time, I noticed that Overlook Court has concrete curb and gutter. Is this project going to be allowed to put concrete curb and gutter along their driveways? The condition says that private roads need to be constructed to public street standards, which would include concrete curb and gutter. So it was unclear to me what the drainage solution will be. And if we don't know now, we can postpone that answer till we get the final documents. But I guess the question is the applicant prohibited from utilizing a concrete drainage solution when it's already utilized in the public street? And the reason I ask the question is we've learned the hard way over the years that when we have roadside ditches, it typically results in an increase of sedimentation and scour. With frequent rainstorms in the summer, picks up that soil, carries it out into the road, spreads it out all over the road, which creates a perpetual maintenance cost to the taxpayer. And so I want to understand what we should be expecting going forward regarding the drainage solution for the project.
My interpretation of the master plan where it speaks to natural drainage is more an aesthetic concern and relating to not curb and gutter, but to other drainage channels. Beyond that, go ahead.
So am I understanding your answer to say that concrete curb and gutter is not prohibited by the master plan language?
Correct.
Okay, so that is something we can talk about when we get to final documents.
Correct.
Thank you.
I guess I had a question. Was there much thought about mail delivery? Is there a cluster box nearby, and where is that? And would that include packages delivered to that cluster as opposed to the individual homes? And if there is a UPS truck or another truck, it might be difficult to get in and out and maneuver. So I'm just kind of curious what thought was given to that.
Yeah, this subdivision application was referred to the post office as we do with any application. Have not heard back from them yet. There is still time with the final package and the final plat to work out those kind of details. I don't know if the applicant has spoken with the post office. No.
Okay. So we might find out a little more later. All right.
Other questions for staff before we move to the applicant presentation?
Chair Mahalik, if I could, one correction or clarification. Director Correcchia pointed out that any future fencing, screen walls could potentially be reviewed as a administrative minor modification rather than a full TRC review.
Thank you for that clarification. Then I would understand that if the proposed condition of approval that prohibits fence, that would close that door. There could not be an administrative review of a fencing proposal in the future because of the restriction placed on the application.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Planner Hornbeck, can you go to that condition slide on your? I think it's the next one. So is the intent here a prohibition on the installation or construction of fencing and screen walls over 40 inches of height, or fencing and screen walls each over 40 inches?
I'm not sure.
Does this permit fencing up to 40 inches in height?
Correct.
Okay. It's not prohibiting fencing or screen walls over 40 inches in height. We've run into this interpretation question before, which is why I'm asking. I want to make it sure it's clear on the record that the intent of condition 8 here is indeed fencing over 40 inches of height and screen walls over 40 inches of height. But below that, either one of those are acceptable.
Correct.
without coming back to the TRC?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Planner Hornbeck. Applicant team, you're up. And if you could introduce yourself for the record, please.
Thank you. I'm Brad O'Neill. I'm the development partner in this venture, and my construction partner is Don Darling with Darling Enterprise, who makes the magic happen. My comments are going to be limited to kind of our thinking about laying out the subdivision lots and also the design for the units. I thought Paul did a good job giving an overview of what we're trying to accomplish here. But I think it'll be helpful to, let's see if I can, how do I scroll? I want to just go to my concept plan. Yeah, there you go, that's fine. So when Don and I purchased the site back in May from John Cullen, the site is approved for 12 units in 6 duplex building envelopes. We looked at the opportunity to diversify the product mix up there in Overlook, because the original plan for this site was single-family detached units. So we decided that's the product type we wanted to pursue, given that was a unique product type not being offered. It's the most in-demand product type for vacation homeowners. So that's why we decided to pursue detached units instead of duplex units. There's a total of 22 duplex units among this Overlook offering right now, and so we felt adding another 12, we would prefer to do detached units as a unique product offering. But we looked at the site, and given the large rock outcropping to the west and the other constraints, we decided to, if we were going to do detached, we wanted to spread out each of the units as much as possible, have as much separation as possible. And, you know, practically we could not do 12 units, given that that would be the right that we would have. So we did really 2 things. One, we scaled back to 10 units in our density. And 2, we tried to spread them out as much as possible. And to answer your question, I think, on the setback request variance for lot 6, that's in part one of the reasons why we wanted to move that unit 6 up further north. It's just because it spreads out those units along that row, and giving us an extra 25 feet, again, allows us to spread out the unit. So that's kind of our thinking. So that's the single family detached piece of our thinking. You'll see that the original plat for the building envelopes, especially those upper lots, there were a total of 3 upper lots. The further east, the easternmost lot had an orientation facing Lake Estes. When you're on the site, the most compelling view is to Long's Peak. And so when we designed the homes, we really tried to maximize what the site gave us, and that's great views of Long's Peak. And so when we designed the homes, we designed them in mind to have really 2 things. One, big window walls facing southwest to Long's Peak, but also a turret form which takes advantage of the sweeping views of the entire Estes Valley. So that is a little bit background about the design. But the other advantage of doing this, especially lots 8, 9, and 10, it creates view windows to our neighbors to the north. And that was an important consideration for us, is to maintain or to minimize the impact of our development to the views of specifically 2 neighbors to our north. The Kahn residents and the Markheim residents are directly north to us. And so I've reached out to both neighbors and provided specific photo surveys from their decks to try to work with them. In fact, we did one thing even further to mitigate, especially Dr. Khan's views, and that we're dropping the height, the whole house on lot 10 down 7 feet. And you'll see in the photo survey that he does preserve his view of Long's Peak. And I think that allows us to comply with the master plan guidance of minimizing the impact as much as possible. So that's the overview of the site. I just want to give you a quick overview of our design too. And can I pull up those slides that I emailed you, or?
It's not connecting for me.
Oh,
I can pull up, I've got some of your other, everything you've submitted here.
okay. If you go back to just the design of the units, that was part of your presentation.
I was gonna pull up the full size. The architectural.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. So I just scroll down that way. Yeah, great. Okay, so the most prominent feature of our development is the southwest side of these homes. And again, these really frame the great views of Long's Peak, the Continental Divide, and that turret frames the sweeping views of Estes Valley, especially that upper level deck. When we designed these homes, we really took inspiration from our neighbors to the north in 3 specific areas. And the reason why we did that is because, reading directly from the master plan, it says, new construction should be compatible with existing adjacent residential buildings and uses. It says, new construction should blend with a residential neighborhood without copying other buildings. So when we looked at the 2 prominent homes to the north of us, and that's the view you get when you come up Overlook Court into our neighborhood, the first views you see are the homes at the top of the hill, Dr. Khan's residence and Dave Margheim's residence at the top. And so as you turn the corner, then you'll start to see our units. And we felt it was important to try to bring in and blend some of that architectural features of those 2 homes. What I'm going to give you is the first home you see is, and I wish I could bring this on the slide on, give that to you. That's Dave Margheim's home. You'll see basically a 3-story window wall, which is a great feature, and it's makes sense because that's the view of Long's Peak. Okay, and so we have kind of a similar 3-story window wall that again kind of ties into that design element. The second thing that we did was the home to the west of the Markheim residence is the Khan residence. Their most prominent feature is a turret-shaped building form with 4 sides. And again, that takes advantage of the sweeping views of Estes Valley. So we took inspiration from their design to do our turret. And so instead of 4, we have 8 sides, but still it's a turret. So, and the third thing is that the Khan residence has a beautiful trellis on their deck. And we took inspiration from that, and so we have a nice trellis on the top of our deck. So for those reasons, we felt it complies with the master plan in terms of being compatible with our neighbors to the north. And with that, I can take any questions or wait till the end.
Questions for the applicant?
I do have a question, and the reason I asked about mail delivery too is because some of the driveways for like lots 7 through 10 are quite an extreme angle. When you pull into your driveway, it's fine, but when you back out of your driveway and trying to go back down the road the other direction, is there enough room for them to make that maneuver And maybe it might be okay for a vehicle, but what for like a FedEx truck? Could they do that movement?
Yeah, that's a good question. We preserved the 20-foot width of that shared driveway from the roundabout overlook court entrance to that driveway all the way to basically lot 8. So we have a 20-foot wide driveway up there, shared driveway. So that was part of our thinking, is that that would allow, let me see if I can go to the concept site plan. Would I be able to go pull up that concept site plan? But that's a good question, because we did consider that. So if a truck did try to go up there, they could make that first turn right around lot 7, make the delivery back up into our fire emergency road and come back down. And we feel that there's plenty turning radius to have a delivery truck do that. And also, as you back out of your driveway, that 20-foot width shared driveway really does help maneuver that turn.
Yeah, there were no dimensions, so it was really hard to determine
Yes,
how
yeah.
wide some of these were.
Yeah, it's 20 feet, so that's a fair distance.
I call that a hammerhead, kind of between lot 9 and 10 for them to back in. That looks pretty narrow too, but I guess.
Yeah, and that was actually more for lot 10 coming out, because at that point, you no longer really have a 20-foot wide shared driveway. So as they back out, they can go into that hammerhead and come back out. So that was really designed for lot 10. But the other ones have pretty good access to a wider driveway.
Okay, all right, thank you.
A question for you on this site plan. There's a gray line going up off the north end of the property. Looks like a street stub. What is that and where does it go?
Yeah, good question. That actually is, that was part of the original plat for Overlook that was approved in 2003. And that was an emergency fire exit lane that goes down into the Black Canyon Inn property. And when we submitted our application in the pre-app meeting, the fire department said that still works fine for emergency exit purposes, but you just need to improve the surface of that and maintain it to a road base. And we're going to put a gate across there at our property line so that it would be a standard that the fire department would accept. But so it's not meant to be a through street down into Black Canyon. It just be fire exit only.
Other questions for the applicant?
Could you speak to the, let's say, technical improvements of your new master plan relative to the duplexes that you were considering prior?
Say it again?
Could you speak to just the technical improvements of your current master plan versus the original way that it was platted with the duplexes?
Yeah, they were duplexes.
Yeah, there might be one that showed like the overlay. I was curious to look at on the map or where it showed both.
If you go back to the original plat. Yeah, there you go. And as further clarification, the original Lot 2 plat for the Overlook condos had these 6 envelopes as single-family envelopes. John Cullen in July 22 presented before the then TRC to increase density from 6 units to 12 units. So he sought and obtained approval to convert those 6 envelopes from single family to duplex, and for the purpose of actually putting those 12 units into hotel inventory. And that was his plan, and it was approved back in 2022 without any objections from the neighbors and the nearby HOA. So John's plans changed, and obviously he had to sell it, given the sale of the hotel to the state entity. But there was really nothing, there was really no design of those duplexes. They were designed of single-family homes, but not the duplexes.
Okay, no, I was looking for more background.
Okay.
Other questions?
A couple thoughts here, and these are maybe a little softer than some of the things we've talked about before, more on design side of things. I was also on the Architectural Review Committee, but some additional information is new in this package compared to what we looked at on the Architectural Review Committee. First, the photo surveys are really well done. I just wanted to congratulate you on. I thought they were extremely well done photo surveys.
And actually, while you go ahead and finish, but I want to give you an update on that, on the photo surveys. But go ahead.
Okay. The first question is about on the utility plan. I saw that the gas meters are shown at a pretty prominent location, immediately adjacent to the turrets. On the exterior, it looked to me like there were opportunities to, maybe get them around the corner on the north face, but below the higher grade. It looked like there was opportunities to make them less visible. Looked like they were really prominent next to the turret. So just a design thought.
Sure.
Something new that I saw in the criteria that is maybe a little bit of a rehash of what we talked about in the ARC. And I guess I just want to, since it is in the stated criteria here, find out if it's an issue as we approve this. But in item C3 of the criteria, it says that we shouldn't have any curvilinear roof forms, and the trellis roof over the turrets are curvilinear. I personally don't have a problem with that design feature, but I guess I'm asking the fellow members of the board here if that's an issue that needs to be either addressed through specific approval, or if it's something that doesn't need to be recognized by the board. The next one was on the landscape plan. There's mention of aspen trees, and I was just wondering about the topography of the site and the water, drought resistance and so on. If aspens were necessarily a good choice. I'm not a landscape architect, so I don't know myself. It just doesn't seem like the kind of terrain that I'm used to seeing aspens on. And then regarding the retaining walls, which are a new element on the site plan, and there isn't very many of them, just a few here and there. Would they be clad with stone, or what's the anticipated, or boulders, or what's the anticipated material?
Natural boulders.
Natural
it would be
boulders,
our
okay.
retaining walls, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so that blends in. There's quite a few retaining walls in the Overlook development that are natural stone. So we would look to replicate something like that.
Okay. Then I guess I'll turn off my microphone here and let, if anybody else has any thoughts about the curvilinear roofs, then I'll.
Planner Hornbeck, can you address the curvilinear roof question?
I'm not sure that I can. Can you, which design guideline was that?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'll see if I can find it here.
Oh, I see it here, yeah. Roof lines of buildings should be designed to be compatible with surrounding building forms is kind of the heading of I believe it's number 3. And then it goes on to say, the following roof forms are prohibited. And on that list is curvilinear. So I guess I would ask perhaps the architect on the TRC for your interpretation.
Well, I I think I like the element myself. I'm just saying it looks like it's strictly speaking not in conformance if that's if it's a subjective judgment, I would vote to approve it. If it's objective, then I guess I'm asking others to for their thoughts.
Can I offer some thoughts on that? We clearly wanted to carry that turret shape all the way to that trellis. And I looked at squaring it off, and it did not look good at all when you square it off. And it really is just, it mirrors that shape. And it's, again, it's subjective. It's a trellis, not really a roof. I could see the roof, if you had a form that had, it was definitely a round shape above, what's the term? Not a cupola, but if it was a round shape as a roof, I think my strict interpretation of that guideline was to prevent that. But as a trellis replicating the shape below it, hopefully there's room for approval on that.
I think that probably when this criteria was written, that the vision that the authors had in mind was probably something more along a swoop, something that changes in elevation on a curve rather than in plan on a curve.
Oh, that's exactly right, yeah.
So that's a possibility.
Yeah.
I do recall the square trellis on one of your earlier drawings, and frankly, it looked a little heavier, and I like the round one myself. So.
Questions or concerns regarding that, is it C3? Yeah, building design, roof line. I guess so we're considering the trellis the roof form, or is it the subset below there? I mean, if the trellis is gone, it's no longer a roof form, even with the. So the question is really, in my eyes, do we consider the trellis a roof form?
Yeah,
But this may be
I think it's a little bit of a gray area, subjective question. That's why I'm asking it.
I think of a roof, I think of something that's keeping weather out, but that's a town administrator interpretation, not an architect interpretation. Thoughts from the TRC regarding whether that is indeed a curvilinear roof form or something that should be addressed explicitly in the resolution?
And I'll have to say, I'm an engineer too, not an architect, so I'm not an expert on that, but aesthetically, I like that it follows the same shape of the turret, and it makes sense. So just from aesthetically, and then I would probably defer to the architect on interpretation of that, but I kind of like the curvilinear.
I do think we should speak to it. I wouldn't avoid it, but I think we can all still recommend it. So I wouldn't ignore the technical notice, right? I think we should speak to it, but I think, yeah, I would tend to agree with the rest of the members of the board. Another engineer, though, not aesthetically to be really considered an expert in any case. So.
Planner Hornbeck, is this something that if we leave open at this point, you could come back and address through the final package directly?
That's an option,
Through a
yes.
planning staff recommendation. I think it would be helpful because all of the Stanley Master Plan works together, if this could be explicitly addressed in the final package through a recommendation. And I don't know if we want to add a condition to the resolution that's in front of us today that this question will be addressed explicitly in the final package. We can get to that when we get to the motion. Other questions for staff or the applicant before we move to public comment?
Yeah, can we go back to that bullet list, just the 2 pages that?
The conditions of
The
approval?
conditions, yes, sir. I guess my technical point was that of the square footage slide to ensure, I mean, it is on the edge, right? It is close, so I didn't know within the conditions if we wanted to just call attention to it so that it's not erroneously, forgotten.
Yeah, that's the intent of condition 9. But I think it could be expanded upon to explicitly list those square footages, maybe in the final package resolution.
I think that's good, yeah.
And just so I understand, your question was about the total square footage allowance for accommodations? And
Yeah, the residential and the accommodation slide, yeah.
okay. I think those calculations were based on 3,600 square feet, and our actual count is 3,573, so it's a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No, and I think it was fine. I wanted to call attention to it just because it was on that line. I'm grabbing on the technical stuff since
Okay,
I can't help with the aesthetic stuff.
one last thing I wanted to bring your attention is that photo survey. Since we started building the model home, we now have an actual reference. Whereas my drawings that were superimposed on those photos was as best I could do in terms of the scale. But what I've learned is that those photo surveys actually exaggerated the massing of those buildings, which I'm glad to see, because those buildings actually will be smaller on this site. And you can see that from the height of the second wall framing that's currently there now in the model home. It's significantly lower than what that home was in that photo survey. So just as a point of reference, I'd rather err on that side of things, making them look bigger than making them look smaller, and you end up with a much more massing on the site. No one expected that. So at least I was glad to see that, and I just want to point that out as well.
One more question for Planner Hornbeck, probably. One of the things that we're deferring off to a building permit is the exterior lighting. And I'm okay with that if, and I guess I just want to verify, the requirement for exterior lighting for the Stanley Historic District is effectively identical to that requirement for all development in Estes Valley. Is this something that the plans checkers for the building department and yourself as planning department, is this in any way different than the normal lighting criteria for any other project in Estes Valley?
I'm trying to find the specific reference here.
And if it is different, should it come back to the TRC, at the final? I guess that's my question. I'm happy to defer it if it's standard procedure, but if it's out of the ordinary, then I'd want to see it back, I
Okay,
guess.
understand your question. It is standard procedure for any development in Estes Park where at the building permit stage, staff does review lighting to ensure compliance. So it would be the same process that normally applies. I believe the wording is a little different, but the intent, I believe, is the same for, dark sky, if not certified dark sky, minimizing glare, downward cast lighting.
All right, we'll move to public comment. Do you have anyone from the public wishing to make comment today? We'll go with 5 minutes a pop.
So I
Please
probably have a
state
little,
your name and address for the record.
Gerald Mail, 265 Lookout Street, Estes Park, and we also own property at 320 Overlook Court. I probably have a little more history with this lot than most of you because I was part of the partnership that developed the first 40 units. And the Stanley Historic District document starts off to preserve the historic character of the hotel, which I don't think these do. it's very specific. You're allowed 46 units. Mr. Hornbeck has kind of interpreted that so you can mix those units with hotel units or residential, and these are obviously residential. And as I read through the stuff here, there's references to Lot 2, 2A, and 2B. I don't know, we haven't talked much about Lot 2B today, but in the information I received from the town, it looks like there's a possibility of building up to, I think it was 13 units over there. And Lot 2 specifically says 46 residential units. I don't think when Mr. Cullen changed that in July, he notified any of the neighbors. And I think it's interesting that we went through the first TRC meeting without notification of the neighbors. The neighbors just got notified for this meeting. And Brad did a nice job of saying that their architecture matches the Cons and the Markheims, but they aren't part of the Stanley Historic District and have nothing to do with the architecture. We had to submit 3 different plans as a previous developer and had to use heavy Georgian architecture in order to get ours approved, so that it did look, preserve the historic look of the Stanley Hotel. So I think actually the subdivision was an illegal subdivision. Being a realtor in town, I've seen a lot of developments where the building sites were approved and the developer did not use them. So those building sites were eventually sold off separately, but you had to still stay within those building sites and using that criteria for the original. And if you get back to the Lot 2, those 6 units were placed there as a result of a very expensive lawsuit. So I think Lot 2 should still be Lot 2, and I think they're only allowed to build 6 units there for a total of 46, particularly where they're saying they're doing residential. That's my opinion.
I'm the guy on the tail end of Lot 10 over there. And our biggest concern, 2 concerns, but our biggest one was just that by changing that from the 3 building sites to 4 building sites up there, that didn't allow the buildings to get slid further to the east, which as far the further east they go, the less of the mountain view that we have there. So as far as setback and all that other stuff, I have to leave that all up to you guys. I don't know about that one. I don't think we got any kind of a notice when Colin changed this the last time, because we were a little bit surprised that came up. However, for what I got in the mail this last time, 3 lots or 4 lots along that north property line there. If you approve the 4 lots, surely we would want them not to go any further to the east. That would hamper our view. And secondly is the road. I've talked to the builder, the developer, and the town. When I say the road, it's that little fire escape trail that goes up over the hill there. When we were down here going through all this for the hotel back there, that was to be closed off so that it didn't become a thoroughfare. And they did go ahead and put up a couple of posts up there, but they never got any further than that. And Overlook now has just become, it's just a through traffic road. I mean, for not just everybody coming and going to work and downtown, but trash service, food delivery for the hotel over there. It really has gotten busy, and we'd sure like you guys to take a good look at that too. So it's been covered, but that's our concerns.
Any other public comments? All right, we will move back to committee discussion. Additional questions for staff or the applicant?
I guess I have one question about that emergency access. Is it meant to have a gate on it?
Yes. And we actually have, and I've talked to Dave about that traffic, and I told him right when I met him that we would do our best to minimize that. So we're doing it in 2 steps. The first step was we post signs now, and both signs are on Black Canyon side and our side that says emergency and or authorized traffic only. We realize that won't stop it, but I think it has stopped, and we will put a gate as soon as we finalize kind of our selection for that gate. And that gate will go up there, and that will definitely stop the traffic. So,
And I assume you'd be speaking with emergency services for them to get access to open the gate.
yes, we'll work with the fire department to make sure that that gate meets their standard in terms of how they deal with that. Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So, and I do want to also address one thing on what Dave said about Lot 10. So yeah, absolutely, Lot 10 is the one that will affect not only the Con residents, but their residents. And the photo surveys that I provided, both of them show that our design is that we've got a single-story garage, and then we've got the 2-story main house. The single-story garage goes a little bit further east of that original building envelope. But the 2-story main part of the house does not go past that. So we feel that that is a good solution to minimize the impact of views to those neighbors. I do want to say, in terms of the design, if you look at the master plan with regard to Georgian architecture, I'm actually surprised that was approved, because the master plan specifically prohibits certain building styles and architecture forms, and it references that it specifically prohibits colonial architecture. Well, Georgian style is a subset of colonial, and it says architecture should not at all try to replicate the hotel. The hotel should be the primary dominant architecture of the whole campus. Everything should be subordinate of that. So if you have Georgian architecture in any other unit, you're competing with that. So I'm actually surprised that that was approved. And the other thing, Georgian architecture started back in Great Britain in the 1700s as an urban type of architecture, and this master plan specifically prohibits urban style architecture. They want to be keeping with the mountain environment, and so we feel our design keeps with the mountain environment for the design. And in terms of density, there's a long list of items, how there's a total of 92 units that were approved for Lot 2 originally, of which 46 could be maximum residential. And then there's a whole, it's spelled out in the package. So it's incorrect to say that there was a total of 46 units approved for Lot 2, when in reality there was a total of 92, a mixture of accommodations and residential. And we went through the analysis of, there's caps for both accommodations, there's caps for residential, and there's a total cap. And so I went through that math, and that's part of the package, and it clearly shows that we're in compliance with density.
Thank you. Planner Hornbeck, a few questions. First, my understanding of the Stanley Master Plan is that nothing should be constructed to look like the hotel. In fact, I think we recently had to, as a TRC, grant a variance to the hotel expansion so that it could look similar to the hotel from even a color scheme standpoint. Is that correct, or are there elements here where there's concern about how these new buildings are relating to the historic district as a whole?
No, you're correct. The master plan does prohibit copying of the historic hotel. in the manor house. It encourages compatibility. It lists certain architecture that's prohibited. And then as we went through with all the guidelines, it speaks to different items on materials, colors, forms, but it does not specify a specific style that must be used.
And can you, I think it's in your presentation, click back to the number of unit calculation, the special considerations. So this mix between Lot 2B and this parcel under consideration today, those interact together to determine what the density is allowed on this particular parcel, right?
Correct.
And so you've gone through and you've done the balance between the accommodations and residential using the development limitations therein, and there's no variance or change is required here relative to the density or the maximum number of units. Is that correct?
Correct.
The only variance was made back in 2022 relative to the maximum square footage.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions from members of the TRC?
I just wanted to clarify whether the proposal to install a gate across the emergency access is actually allowed by the development code. Because I know there was some discussion years ago that prohibited the installation of gates in Estes Park. And is there an exclusion for emergency accesses?
I believe that's correct, that emergency access can be gated, but publicly accessible roads are not meant to be gated.
Thank you.
Before we move to a consideration of a motion in a second, I would like to talk about adding condition number 10, that the applicant work with staff to explicitly address the questions regarding the curvilinear roof form that came up relative to the general design guideline C3 as it pertains to the trellis roof, maybe not roof line. That's a Teo. A condition number 10 to explicitly address the open question regarding the curvilinear roof form as detailed in General Design Guideline C3. With that, any further questions for either the applicant or staff? If not, I would entertain a motion. And for the purposes of the motion, I think it's either a motion, the deny motion in the packet, or it's a motion to approve Resolution 2502 with the addition of that condition number 10 as articulated.
So moved.
We have a motion
I second that.
and a second. Can we get a roll call vote? Yeah, let's start here.
Yeah, member Calvin?
Yes.
Okay, yes, okay.
Yes.
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 Motion carries. There being no further business before this body, this meeting is adjourned, 2:39. Thank you.